So we've made our figure do something. So we've learned how to do all of that through various means. For this one, I just went ahead and went with the parented hinged layers, and I just decided to make my guy look like he was kind of flying through the air, right? But I was thinking about it, and I just think it's too hard. I don't know if I really want to make this whole thing happen just right here on the screen like this. I would rather like get this character to kind of do a looping motion, and then I'd like him to be able to do that over and over and over again. So I went ahead and set up the movement, but instead of having him look like he's sort of flying through the air and landing, I'm just going to do it all in one spot. I'm going to show you how to kind of make this go a little faster. It's a little more efficient. So this is what we call nesting. So if you look up here in my project panel, I have like this layer that I just finished, and so all of the adjustments I've made here are in there. I also have this one which was blank, and this one which just had a helmet, right? But if I wanted to, what I can do is I can place or nest this football one tutorial I can nest that particular sort of composition within another one, which can really make things better and easier for you. So if you go up here to composition and you go to new composition, I'll just name this something like, just something you can remember. Maybe this would be like the big comp that I'm going to use, for everything. And you can keep the background black if you want. Click OK on that. Okay, so now it's empty, right? There's nothing in there. I don't have anything in the timeline. But if I go back over here and I just grab football player 1, and if you can't quite read it, you can scooch this thing over a little bit. You can also grab these things, right, and make them so you can read them a little bit better. So I know I want to grab football 1 tutorial, and so I want to place it in here. So I just grab that and drop it into the timeline. And now that whole comp is in my timeline. So now the whole thing that I made in there. Oh no, this is the wrong thing. My bad. Oh, it's the layers. That's why I grabbed the whole folder. Okay. Let's not grab the folder. Let's grab that thing. Okay. So here you can see it, right? So now, hey, here's this guy, and he does his thing, right? And it's all in there, just in one thing, so I don't have to keep track of a billion little pieces and parts. But you'll notice that it's a little bit like I have all of this tail on the timeline, even though my main action I care about stops right here. So that just means there's a little problem with the duration of this particular comp that I've placed into the big comp timeline. So if I double click, anything you double click will open it up. Okay, here it is again. And what I probably want to do is I want to trim this whole comp down, right? So if I go, this is the beginning of the work area. If I scroll over here to the end, or I could even use these little mountain icons there. If I scroll back and I set the end of the timeline kind of where I want it to end, so it sort of looks like it loops, right? Maybe I'll zoom back in here. If I do this, okay, so I want the thing to start and I want it to stop right there. Well, now all I have to do is I can write down, this is like a 3-second thing, so I just need to write down the timeline, the duration there, and I can go to composition settings, and I can change the duration, so instead of it being 30 seconds, I'm just going to go 0 through, oops. All right, I click OK on that. Now my timeline sort of starts and stops right there, for that particular comp. It's only a 3-second comp, pretty simple. Now if I go back to the big one that I just placed it into, it automatically updated it, right? And check it out, like, there it is. So that's pretty great because now this thing just sort of like, it's only the one thing that happens and it kind of opens and closes and disappears, right? But one thing that you might want to end up doing is you might want to repeat something like this, right? So you might want to like kind of make it loop. So easy way to do that is just to select that comp and copy it and paste it in, and then we can just stagger those. So if we want to, we can do that whole thing, right? Just make it, you can jump 3 times if you want, however many times you want to. We can also, there's also options in here. If you control click on it, there are options in here for sort of time options. But a lot of the things that you can do with time is actually going to be, you're not going to probably be able to just like loop something over and over and over again. So sometimes you have to render the footage, so we won't do that for now. But this is time remapping, which will let you slow it down or speed it up. We don't want to mess with that right now. So, but the cool thing about this is I can resize this guy, right? So if I want him little, I'm gonna make him little. And let's say I want to make him jump across the screen. Well, I can take that whole comp, start it here, go again, just swirl down on my transform and go to position, start with a keyframe here, and figure, okay, by the 3rd second I want him to be over there. I can change the path that the motion takes, right? Adjust those. So now if I go back, there he goes, he's jumping, right? And if I don't like the size, well, then I can make the size different. And if I'm like, oh, I wish he would just sort of sit there for a little while afterwards, well, just double click your first thing, go back to your composition settings, right? And change the duration from 3 seconds to, let's say, 6. Now if we go back here, okay, now he's going to jump, and then he's going to sit there. Let's see. Oh, it's because I need to change this, so we got to change the end so it goes. And then you might need to extend these guys out after you trimmed it down like that. So one trick, is just to kind of get all this sorted out before you trim any of it. But you can always fix things if you need to. So never despair when you're working in After Effects. It could get confusing, but there's always a way to kind of like go back in and readjust things, especially when you're nesting things. So all right, so now if I go back, there he goes. He's jumping, and then he's just going to sit there for 3 more seconds. So I could make him get bigger and smaller if I wanted to. Now that I've done that once, I could copy this, paste it in. I could stagger it a little bit, so I have 2 of my guys jumping, and now they like one guy follows the other. Or I could make this one bigger, so I could just make the second one bigger, or I could change the path that it follows. I could change the scale if I want to keyframe that. I can keyframe each of these, and I can kind of repeat stuff over and over again, right? So there's no end to the amount of things that you can nest one within the next. But nesting is really, really helpful if you're going to do something that would be that's a pain to like do over and over and over again, and you just kind of want to control it all in one sort of bundle, right? So think of this as like a file folder or someplace where you've got all your this one action kind of saved, and then you can go back and do this, and then make it do whatever you want over and over again. This could be really useful. Let's say this was just your character blinking, and you wanted your character to blink. So you just do the head, you just do the face, and then you animate the character blinking. And then if you have a longer timeline or a longer scene you want to put it in, you can just place that head into another comp, and that character's head will blink. And you can move the head around, and you could even parent that to another thing. There's a million things that you can do with it. So I can parent these 2 things together. So it's just nesting is really, really great and really efficient. And again, the last thing that you can do sometimes, especially if your computer doesn't have a lot of RAM, is you could do this. So you could go here and make this look the way you want, and then you can export the footage. So if you want to do that, you can go to Composition, and go to Add to Render Queue, and it'll bring up a thing, and you tell it where to put it, and it'll just render out the video itself. And then you can import the video back into your project panel, and then you can loop it over and over again. We'll go over that a little bit later. But there's just a million cool things that you can do with nesting. So be thinking about that as you build your characters. And so now that we've got the basics of that, of the character movement and things like that done, now we'll work on how to add a background, text, a whole bunch of other things.